Hello there, and welcome to episode 33 of the Classic Rock Podcast. For those about to pod, we salute you. In this episode, we look back at the year 2009 in My Year in Rock. We also celebrate American Independence Day with the greatest American bands. There's the regular feature of Hidden Gem Time, everyone's favorite spot. But we start with What's Caught Your Eye, Bri? Here's Brian.
Hey, Matthew. See, that's what it's like whenever you don't interrupt anybody and make them laugh. You sound so much professional when you do it.
Do I?
You do.
Thank you. I actually, as I was doing that, kind of just off the top of my head, I completely forgot which features to include. I think I got them all.
You did. Very well. Very well.
Feature bingo. I've got a full house.
So what's under my hat, Matt?
No, what's caught your eye?
So,
yes,
Whitesnake cancelled the remainder of their European tour, Matthew. There'll be lots and lots and lots of disappointed Whitesnake fans not getting the opportunity to see DC and all of the Whitesnake family.
The Snakes and Snakeettes. Yeah, it's quite a long list of the countries that they're not now subsequently going to play in.
Yeah.
Hungary, Serbia, Greece, North Macedonia, Bulgaria, Romania, Bosnia. It's a lot of gigs being cancelled, unfortunately. What's gone on there then?
Well, it's been an interesting probably 3 or 4 weeks. So it first of all started with Reb Beach. Reb Beach wasn't well and sat out about 4 shows. So Joel Hoekstra did all of the heavy lifting on the guitar on his own. And then they invited Steve Vai at Hellfest to come on and play the guitar solo in Still of the Night. So Joel still did all of the heavy lifting. And then Tommy Aldridge was unwell. And we got into one of those situations where I think Whitesnake cancelled on the day and said, Tommy wasn't well. And then the promoter put out a statement that this is what he was told by the band, and then it all got a little bit silly. But the long and short of it was Whitesnake didn't play. And then DC came down with sinus.
Covenants.
Yes, David Covenants. The Lord Coverdale came down with a sinus infection, and effectively he was put on, I was going to say box rest, but he's not a horse. He was bed rest and told not to sing. And then Whitesnake made the decision, we're going to cancel the remainder of the European tour.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? Tough on them and tough on the fans that have paid money and would look forward to seeing them, of course, in those countries.
It is. And you look at some of the other... And we've talked about this in previous episodes where... Do you remember when we talked about Van Halen and they were going to do the Van Halen tribute? And they said, we'll go out on tour, but we'll have
substitutes.
We'll have substitutes. And you wonder... At what point in a tour can you have substitutes sitting in? So Tommy Lee cracked 4 of his ribs for the stadium tour in America, and they brought in a stand-in drummer for Motley Crue.
Yep.
And you kind of go, is it really just the singer that you can't replace in the band? Because I know a few people on social media. You've got that fantastic, the pride of Croatia, as David calls him, Dino Jeličić. Could Dino have done a show as the lead singer to stand in for David? I don't know. And would fans have accepted that, or would they have said, "No, can I have my refund, please? I want to hear. Here's a song for you."
Yeah, it's an interesting one actually. I would imagine. I don't know. What is it better? Is it better to have a gig cancelled, or for Whitesnake to say, sorry, David can't perform, it's going to be Dino? I would probably say they would prefer the gig rather than the cancellation,
yes.
Of course. But of course, there's more to it than just kind of step forward Dino Jeličić, because you know, he needs to know all the songs and all the cues and all this, that and the other. Maybe that's the nature of the beast. I mean, I think you mentioned when we were talking earlier that Bret Michaels from Poison had come down with an illness.
Yeah.
And these are not in inverted commas rock and roll illnesses per se.
No.
Not to put too fine a point on it. They are genuinely, COVID or cracked ribs or similar. And of course, as we've said many times, these folks are not in the first flush of youth. And as we all know, the older you get, the more prone you are to, ailments, let's say. Not rock and roll ailments.
Yeah, so that's kind of where we are with crock and roll. The demise.
Crock and roll.
Crock and roll.
Do you think that's going to catch on?
I hope not, because that means we'll be talking about shows which have been cancelled. It just, as you say, it's the nature of the beast. It's just a shame that I really enjoyed the Whitesnake show, a month ago. It was a nice way to see them off, and there'll be fans all over Europe who've not had that chance to say a fond farewell to David and the Whitesnake. So, yeah.
The Whitesnakes. In other news, now, I like an auction. I may have mentioned auctions once or twice.
But we haven't got a budget, Matt.
Well, when you hear what's up for sale, Brian, I think you might raid your little piggy bank.
Okay.
So I only heard it today, actually. So Gibson, they're a guitar brand, by the way, Brian. I don't know whether you've heard of them. Very famous one. They have now several Gibson guitar players, and there are a few, of course, have signed Gibson guitars, to be auctioned. And one that stood out for me was Angus Young from AC/DC had signed one of his Gibson SG standards, that beautiful red, the classic Angus Young guitar. Joe Perry has signed one of his Joe Perry Gold Rush Les Paul Access guitars. And so on. There's loads. Darius Rucker from Hootie and the Blowfish, Robin Zander, Don Felder, who was in the Eagles, Slash. Really good. Anyway, a long list of luminaries of signed guitars to be auctioned for a tremendous cause, which is Gibson Gives and the National Museum of African American Music Education Fund.
Yeah.
And I suggest you get your little piggy bank, have a little look in it, give it a shake, maybe. Hopefully there's some notes in there. English ones.
It's a big piggy bank.
And maybe you can, bid for one of those. I mean, I think Angus Young's Gibson SG would look lovely in your little home studio there.
I don't have an SG.
Well, there you go. You see, problem solved.
Thank you for spending my money for me, Matthew.
Well, you're very welcome. So we shall see how we go with that. The auctions continue for obviously good causes.
It is very good.
And good on them.
Yeah, absolutely.
All those folks putting those guitars forward.
And good to see, talking about Gibson and Dorsey's, and there are other guitar brands out there as well.
Indeed. You're very good at these links, by the way. Well done. Yes.
So, a Gibson and Dorsey that was lovely to see back on stage at last weekend was Mr. David Grohl. It was fantastic to see Dave on stage with Paul McCartney and Bruce Springsteen. It was good to see David. I have to confess, I know you asked me in the last episode, Matt, to try and get you tickets for Taylor Hawkins.
Any joy?
No. At what time did you say that the tickets would be sold out?
That's right. They went on sale at 10 o'clock on the Friday, and I forecast they'd be sold out by 5 past.
I don't think you were far wrong then. Yeah.
So you didn't get yourself one. Did you get me one though?
No. No, we'll just have to. We'll have to just watch it on YouTube, or it may be televised. So I'm so sorry I didn't get you tickets for Taylor Hawkins.
No, it's okay. I'm sure you tried really hard.
I did.
Yeah, I saw clips of that. Yeah, it was good to see Dave Grohl, and of course Bruce Springsteen on stage with Paul McCartney. And if you were there, I'm sure you would have enjoyed it. I believe I saw a friend of mine who was there, and she said the old songs, of course, the Beatles songs and the Wings songs got a great reception, but Paul McCartney played a few songs off his new album.
Yeah, he did.
Which, and I think I read Paul McCartney said that during the Beatles songs and the Wings songs, there's an array of lights from smartphones. Yeah. Not so much during these new songs. So I don't know whether people took the opportunity to go to the loo or get a drink or whatever.
They've got to keep it. He wants to keep it interesting for himself as well.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of course.
And talking about artists who have come back after a little bit of a break, you do know one of my favorite bands on the planet is a band called Porcupine Tree.
You have mentioned them 4,000 or 5,000 times, yeah.
Nearly as much as King's X. Oops, I mentioned them. So Porcupine Tree, their new album came out last week. It's called Closure and Continuation. I think every episode of this podcast that comes out, Matt, I seem to turn around and go, this is my new album of the year.
You do, yeah. When we get to the album of the year, I'll be interested to see or hear your actual album of the year, because there's a lot to choose from so far, which is good.
Yeah, but
Porcupine Tree is it? This is really it.
Exactly, it's phenomenal. I went and bought. You know me, always a sucker for the let's buy the box set with the little book and the. But what's really good is they actually ended up getting their highest ever chart position in the UK. They were beaten to the number 1 slot by Mr. Harry Styles. They got to number 2. But on the physical charts, they actually got to number 1. And in the Netherlands and Germany, they were number 1. So Porcupine Tree's new album has been very well received by the rock community. So looking forward to it. And I'm off to see Porcupine Tree in November when they play Wembley Arena. So that was a good new release, which came out. Other new releases, it was a little bit of a new release sesh on Friday and over the weekend I was listening to. So obviously listen to Porcupine Tree. The Iconic album came out, which you and I were really looking forward to it, which had, Marco Mendoza, Tommy Aldridge, the old Whitesnake rhythm section, Joel Hoekstra and Michael Sweet on guitars. Michael Sweet from Stryper, obviously singing lead vocals along with Mr. Nathan James from Inglorious, who we will
What would you call, just remind me, sorry, what would you call that kind of ensemble?
I believe it's called a supergroup.
Oh, that's right. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Always forget that.
And on first listen, Matt, and when you look at all of the ingredients, you've got some of the best hard rocking, classic rock musicians of the last 20, 30 years. Yeah. And Nathan James, somebody who I don't know Inglorious's music that well, but Nathan's voice was fantastic. The production was great. I just thought it was a little bit... There was elements of it where it was really classic rock, and then there was elements of it where I didn't think that Michael's vocal and Nathan's vocal gelled together. I was expecting Coverdale and Hughes, and it just didn't gel for me. And some of the guitar playing was very, 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 very technically widdly when I'm wanting to hear Back in Black groove and rock stuff. So I'm hoping if they get a chance to do a second album, they'll have settled into their sound. They'll be a little bit more settled in the band. But do you know what? A very good start. And I have to say, Nathan James, for those people who will come to his vocal because of, the Whitesnake connections with all of the rest of the guys in the band, I think they'll be very, very suitably surprised. But another band of that sort of Frontiers project era was a band called Black Swan. So Black Swan was Robin McAuley, who we love Michael Schenker Group and Macaulay Schenker.
Yep.
They have just brought out their second album, which is called Generation Mind. And the first album was good, but this is a band that's really they've really found their stride with the second album. Before the album's called Generation Mind. The first 3 tracks, the title track itself, Generation Mind's great, but Before the Light, She Hides Behind. Maybe it's just taken that second album for those guys to just settle into their groove and go, this is us. Because it's got Reb Beach, who's Joel Hoekstra's partner in Whitesnake. Yep. Jeff Pilson, who was in Dokken and produces, lots of the Frontier material, and obviously Robin Macaulay. So, a couple of releases. I think Black Swan's really good. Iconic. Have a listen to it, Matt, and let us know your thoughts. And if anybody's put something up on the Facebook page, so lots of good releases. But I have to say, Porcupine Tree's album is my album of the week so far.
No, very good. Well, I'll give that a listen, and the others that you mentioned. So moving on. So Kiss, we've mentioned a few times, are on their farewell tour that seems to be going on for quite a while. Mm-hmm. They were under the spotlight recently for allegedly miming to backing tapes, which we'll come on to later, maybe in the hidden gem spot.
Okay.
Everyone's favourite part of the old podcast, of course. But one thing that made me smile recently, and I do love a Spinal Tap moment, is the fact that Kiss were playing in Vienna on their on part of the European tour, obviously.
Vienna.
And at the end of the show, Kiss do this thing on their screen where they put up the flag of the nation that they're playing in, and it's sort of thank you, presumably in the local language. I've only ever seen Kiss in this country, so I can't speak for other countries. But let's say it was in German. Thank you, Austria, which is nice. However, they put it against the background of not the Austrian flag, but the Australian flag, which I thought was a little faux pas, to put it mildly. And knowing Kiss, one of their production guys probably got a bit of a telling off,
yes,
let's say. But obviously, as usual, good publicity for Kiss, but it made me chuckle. I do like a Spinal Tap moment. And well, you do get them every now and again.
Yeah, I think there was a festival at the weekend in Barcelona, and I know that we had this experience at Rambling Man once with a headliner, but they've got 2 stages going at this festival in Barcelona. So Megadeth are in the middle of their set, and I know you enjoyed them at Download.
Yeah.
But Dave Mustaine is getting ready to start playing, and on the second stage, the roadie's sound checking.
I know.
He's sound checking, and I think Dave, from what I gather, Dave Mustaine stops his show and sort of goes over to the far corner of the stage and sort of gesticulates rather vigorously to the stagehand, comes back to the microphone and sort of says, "Are we okay to continue now?" But he was remonstrating very very hard to the poor roadie who was trying to sound check and trying this whilst Megadeth were playing their set. So yeah,
it's a bit ironic, really. They were playing the song "Angry Again," and then they finished that to go into Symphony of Destruction. And as you say, he was interrupted by the roadies on the other stage, which I suppose it's one of the pitfalls if you've got two stages side by side. I mean, Downloaders, for example, and other festivals have got the stages kind of dotted around. You do get a little bit of leakage, but side by side, I mean, you're asking for trouble, aren't you really?
You are.
And of course, Dave Mustaine dealt with it in his own inimitable and somewhat lacking in patience style.
Very much.
And gave them a fairly hefty verbal berating. Yes, Spinal Tap moments. We'll keep a lookout for those. There's bound to be more. Another similar thing that's caught my eye, more in the kind of world of merchandising. So we talked a little bit about how bands have put out alcohol, gin. We talked about it last time with Def Leppard and their new gins. There's been Motorhead beer, Iron Maiden beer, and so on. But soon to be released is a Barbie doll based on David Bowie's image from the Life on Mars hunky dory era, with the orange hair and the sort of outlandish makeup. And I'm thinking, really? I mean, just when you thought the world had gone crazy enough, a Barbie doll made to look like David Bowie from 1971 seems to have taken things to another level. I'm not sure who's going to buy it. And I guess Bowie completists, Bowie aficionados will get it. But I mean, you wouldn't give it to a child for Christmas. You'd probably scare the living daylights out of them. So we shall see how that plays out. How well that sells.
So is David Ken?
No, David's Barbie.
Yeah, it's right. Okay, all right.
I guess Ken would be Mick Ronson, maybe. I don't know. Although I admire your knowledge about Barbie and Ken, Brian. I was more of an action man.
So was I. I had
Eagle Eyes.
Eagle Eyes.
Did you? And what about the Action Man? I do, and they always had gripping hands, didn't they? Do you remember the gripping hands? That was revolutionary when that came out when I was a child. Gripping hands. Yeah. I'm not sure what they were gripping. We won't go into that, but Action Man with that fuzzy kind of hair, eagle eyes, gripping hands,
and if you had the one with the scar.
Oh, I'm going on eBay now to go and buy an Action Man. Anyway, we digress.
We do
only slightly, and then finally. In the news section, Kate Bush. Now, we all love Kate Bush. And if you were a young fellow in the 70s, early 80s, as I was, you enjoyed Kate Bush in lots of ways. Musically, performance-wise, and so on. So she had a bit of a resurgence with Stranger Things soundtrack.
You come on. You have to sing it now. Yeah.
Running up that hole, running up that hill with no problem. Do you mean that version? Running up that hill. But apparently, I haven't seen the rest of this season of Stranger Things. Season. I don't know. And this series. We're not Americans.
No, we're not.
Series of... have you noticed how many Americanisms have sort of slipped into our kind of day-to-day speak?
Yeah.
I work for an American organisation. Everyone reaches out to each other. Can you reach out to him? No, I'll contact him. I'll give him a call, Reach out. Anyway, we digress. Yeah, so I haven't seen all this series of Strange Things, but apparently there's a lot of emphasis on Metallica later on in the...
there is.
And you've got a theory that Master of Puppets may be the next number one. Maybe we should put some money on that, Brian. Have a little bet. Yeah. And then you could pay for your Gibson SG, your Angus Young autographed.
Exactly. Yeah, no. There, as you know, there will be, I'm sure there's probably a Facebook page or Facebook group that's been set up that go in, let's get Master of Puppets to number one. If Kate can do it, so can Kirk and James.
Indeed.
And the other ones. Love you, Lars.
Robert and Lars. Yes, anyway, so that brings us to the end of this episode's news. So it's July. It's the time of American independence. And having done 32 of these episodes, we do like to celebrate these events, don't we?
We do.
It gives us some reason to talk about different things. And so to celebrate American Independence Day, we thought we'd discuss our favourite great American bands.
That was a song, wasn't it? You're an American band.
It was Grand Funk Railroad. You're paraphrasing it, but we're an American band, which is a good song.
It is.
We should put that on the old playlist, on the old podcast playlist, I meant to say.
Okay.
We should put that on the old playlist, Brian. Anyway,
hopefully, Grand Funk's version, not mine.
Grand Funk Railroad. That's a good name, isn't it, for a band?
It's fabulous.
I wonder how they came up with that. I imagine they probably sat there smoking a few doobies and thought, what should we call ourselves? And then the name just came to them.
Yeah.
Anyway, we digress. So, the great American bands, Brian.
Yes.
Would you like to kick us off?
I would do. Are we doing this in? Are we at the end of this conversation? Will we have our what we think is our best
top five?
Top
our
five.
top five. Our own top fives.
Yeah. And there's a few bands which, as you can imagine, from my perspective, are left off. But I'm going to kick off with
King's X. Leaving King's X off the list.
I never mentioned them.
Just to kind of manage everyone's expectations.
Exactly.
King's X are not on your list, are they?
King's X are not on my list. Neither.
Okay, good.
Exactly.
Phew. We can all relax now.
We can all relax now. The number one slot is empty. So the first band first band I have on my list, I have the Eagles.
Oh.
Or
Number
Eagles.
one or
Eagles
number
is
five?
it called?
Yes. Number one or number five?
They're number 5.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Tell me about the Eagles then. Why have you got them so low down in your top 5 list?
Honestly, because I had a list of about 25. I had 25 greatest bands from America. I have loads to choose from. I think the Eagles. I've probably focused more on the harder rock element as my one or two ones, but I think for a lot of people, when you look at who the great American bands are, in the I think they do hold the accolade for having the greatest selling album of the 20th century, and their greatest hits, their first greatest hits album is they have awards. Yep, go and speak to Irvin Azoff. He's got a little award saying they might be the compilation, might be the greatest compilation sales.
I think it's the best selling best of.
Yeah,
is the greatest hits from 71 to 83 or whatever it is.
Yeah, and you'll probably, I'm going to steal your thunder a little bit. It's the longevity of the Eagles, and I know from 1972 up through to 1980, and then they had their hiatus when they came back in 1994. But from 1994 right up until last week, the Eagles are selling out stadiums across the globe. So I had to have, and a lot of people will call the Eagles America's greatest band. So I had to have them in.
It's a good choice. Good choice indeed. 120 million albums sold.
Wow.
Over a 50 or 51 year career. As you say, broken up occasionally, different little breaks, and get back together when hell froze over and so on. But you can't argue with 120 million albums. And to me, they're the sound of America, really. I mean, they've almost got the perfect mix, the perfect combination, good songs,
yeah,
and just the delivery. I think it's just, I mean, it's almost like someone pouring, I don't know, cream over you. It's just that, it just envelops you. It's just beautiful.
FM radio was made for the likes of Eagles.
I would agree.
Or
Absolutely.
the Eagles.
Yeah, whichever way you like to refer to them.
Yeah. How about you?
Eagles.
What's your number 5?
Well, like you, I had a kind of longish list, and I was thinking about longevity being a factor. For example, if you think about the Doors, who are clearly one of the greatest bands ever to come out of America, they had a fairly short career. Did some fantastically influential work, and clearly Jim Morrison was a hugely influential frontman and left his mark on music. But would you call them one of the greatest American bands? You may do. I'm going to go with Guns N' Roses as one of the great American bands. Been going since the mid-'80s, of course, still going. Recently played in the UK, did stadium tours over the weekend in London, actually. Hopefully, I'm not quite sure, but I think London was their only date on the UK tour. I could be wrong.
They are coming to
are they coming to Glasgow?
They are coming to Glasgow.
Yeah, I've got news for you. They cancelled. So Guns N' Roses, I would say, in terms of just a great American band, hugely influential, hugely successful, very colourful history, of course. But I'm going to put them somewhat controversially in my top 5.
Okay.
Appetite for Destruction, of course, one of the greatest debut albums of all time. So Guns N' Roses is in my top 5.
Okay.
As are the Eagles, by the way. So we won't go back to them.
Okay.
But I had the Eagles as number 1 in terms of the greatest
Did you?
American bands. Oh yeah, I've said it now.
Okay.
I've let the cat out of the bag.
Number 4 for me. Is this controversial? Boston.
Okay.
I've never seen them. They never grace us with their presence in the UK. I think the last time Boston were in the UK was the late 70s.
Probably on their UK tour
of London. But it's that when I think of AOR, melodic rock, American anthems, those cassettes we bought, or whenever you had your car with your 5 change your CD, Matt.
Indeed.
You could have had, all those compilations, albums, driving rock. More Than a Feeling would have been on there. And to me, Boston, Tom Scholz, that debut album, and Brad Delp's vocals, they just touch a nerve with me. More Than a Feeling is one of those songs where we all love it. Nobody or anybody rarely touches it as a cover because the vocals are just phenomenal. So yeah, Boston for me are just, they are an American band, and still touring, and in America and nowhere else.
Indeed. Yeah, no, phenomenal. I mean, the first 3 albums are just incredible pieces of work. Let's have Foreplay, Long Time, Don't Look Back, Something About You. Let's have them on the old
absolutely
playlist. Yes. And okay, no, that's good. That's good. Well, I'll see your Boston, and I'm going to go with Journey. In a similar vein, actually. The soundtrack to many people's 70s and 80s, featuring the unbelievable vocals of Steve Perry. We talked about him before. The voice of AOR in some ways, alongside Lou Gramm, Foreigner. But just a great band. They've done some great songs, great albums. Still goes strong. New album out with the new singer Arnel Pineda. I haven't heard it, but I imagine it's in the same vein as a lot of their similar historic work. So, I'm going to go with Journey as number 4 on my list.
I had Journey as number 3 on mine.
Did you now?
I did.
Look at that, great minds think alike. Thoughts on Journey? Another band that they don't often play. I mean, they have played in this country, the UK. Not it's all about the UK. I mean, we happen to be based in the UK.
Yeah.
For now, anyway. But, they don't have to play the UK.
I've been lucky enough to see them. I was lucky enough to see when they started to do the package shows in the early 2000s. I saw Journey, Foreigner, and Styx on a 3-band bill, and all bands were great. I actually thought Foreigner blew everybody off the stage. It was the first time I saw Kelly. But Neil Sean's just an amazing guitarist, and
Arnel Pineda.
Yeah, their new lead singer, and it's not so much new anymore, but he is able to cover Steve's material. So yeah, Journey would have to be in our top 5. I'd be very surprised between you and me we didn't have Journey high up on our list.
Indeed. Okay. What you got next?
ZZ Top.
Ooh, good choice.
The little old band from Texas.
Indeed.
You can't go wrong with ZZ Top. So I'm gonna cheat a little bit because it's our list. You've gone with Journey as your 3. I'm gonna go with ZZ Top as or Journey as your 4. Yep. I'm gonna go with ZZ Top as my 3. I think for longevity, for being able to, that little band from Texas who went global with Eliminator. And we've seen them headline High Voltage, we've seen them headline Ramblin' Man. When they're on stage, there's nothing better than on a Sunday night, the last night of our last band to play on the festival, and you're sent home with ZZ Top. So a classic American band.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to go with someone similar in terms of longevity. We've used that word a lot, haven't we? I'm going to go with Aerosmith, my number 3, in terms of the great American bands. Started in late 60s, early 70s. A few lineup changes over the years, but essentially the same core of the band. Formed in Boston, and essentially, global domination. Certainly in the 70s, and to an extent during the 80s, in their sort of post-rehab comeback, Permanent Vacation, Pump, just some great songs. And you can pick, almost anything from any era, Brian. Back in the Saddle, or of course, Dude Looks Like a Lady, Love in an Elevator, anything from any era, really. And, they've maintained that level of quality. And a great band live. Seen them a few times over the years. They do come to the UK quite a lot, which is good. And well worth a look if you do get to see them. I think their farewell tour may actually be a farewell tour. But if they do play in the UK, or indeed wherever you are, try and see them on their last tour.
I got into them on Lovin' an Elevator, and around sort of Permanent Vacation and Pump, which was the later albums. And it's only really with diving back into, some of the material, like Sweet Emotion, which is a phenomenal, just the way in which that track builds up.
Absolutely.
And Toys in the Attic, which is a great album. But as I say, the longevity of Aerosmith, they're worthy of their place in the top 5.
Yeah, indeed. So number 2, I've gone for a band we've talked about quite a lot over the episodes. Sadly, no longer with us due to the untimely death of their legendary guitarist, and that band is Van Halen. One of the greatest exports from America. Just tremendous legacy they've left behind in any era of Van Halen you want to pick.
Yeah.
And obviously underpinned by the Van Halen brothers. Great stuff. Some great albums from their unbelievably good debut through the eras, through the Sammy Hagar era. Just tremendous. So certainly worthy of top 2 spot. And it was a toss-up between them and the Eagles, I have to say. But I couldn't help but go for the Eagles, just on pure sort of, I guess, American-ish, on pure American-ness. No, hang on. But I had to go for the Eagles just on their sheer sort of size and scale, and the epitomizing the American sound.
Okay, interestingly, Van Halen weren't my number 2.
Really?
No, my number 2 was Bon Jovi.
Okay.
Living on a Prayer.
An American institution.
They are an American institution. So my number 2 is Bon Jovi, and I'll put a few tracks on there. So your number 1, you've already let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah, number 1, the Eagles or Eagles.
Yeah. My number 1, Van Halen.
Okay, there you go. Perfect.
Yeah. So it'll be a very, very, very American, upbeat 4th of July playlist that we'll put out. But
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Honourable mentions. I'm sure you got some as well, Brian. Heart, great stuff. Great albums in the 70s. Motley Crue.
Yes.
Controversially, but they sold 100 million albums, and a lot of people love them.
Yeah.
The Big Four, of course. Metallica, Megadeth, we mentioned earlier. Slayer and Anthrax. Maybe not everyone's cup of tea, but I mean, worthy of mention. Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam. We mentioned Foreigner briefly. Nirvana, we mentioned briefly. Kiss, of course, who we touched upon earlier. I mean, just the list goes on, and there are some bands that will be the future. Much as we touched upon last time, will be the future of American music. Rival Sons, Dirty Honey, Shinedown, Alter Bridge, Hailstorm, Greta Van Fleet, and many more.
You covered them all.
Did I?
Yeah, apart from Tom Petty.
Oh, cool. Of course. What a great way to end the great Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Yeah, let's have Refugee and
Fair enough.
Mary
Deal.
Jane's Last Dance. Fantastic. So that was it. That was a little trip down the list of the great American bands. Hope you liked it. Happy Independence Day to our American listeners. We wish you well. So last time, Brian, I sent you the year 2009.
Yeah, exactly. 2009.
Do you remember it?
Not especially.
13 years ago, or if you're listening in 7 years' time, 20 years ago. 2009. Talk us through 2009, Brian.
2009. Again, bit like 1996. Quite an eclectic year for albums. I'll do albums first, and then we'll do some gigs, because there were some gigs you and I went to together.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to kick off with some cracking albums. The first album I'm going to that was on my list was Chickenfoot. Chickenfoot, the self-titled debut album from Chickenfoot, which was this the supergroup with Sammy Hagar.
Sorry, the what? Sorry?
Supergroup.
Oh, yeah.
With Sammy Hagar and Michael Anthony from Van Halen, Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers, and Joe Satriani. Absolutely mega album. Planet Rock lost its mind, and I think we all did when the album came out. And it's an album that it didn't disappoint at all. I was very, very impressed with just how just rock and roll and how great in the pocket a guitar player Joe Satriani was. It wasn't all the widdly diddly stuff. It was just phenomenal. I really loved that.
Absolutely fantastic album. Great song. Every single song on that, you pick any of them. It's just perfect from start to finish.
Soap on a Rope.
Yeah. I'll go with Turning Left.
Yeah.
And Get It Up. But I mean, you could just go with any song off that album. Great stuff. Good start.
Good, thank you. The next album I have, which is an album by a band, an American album. Gosh, could they have made my top 5? No, sure they could have. Fifth studio album from the pop rock band Train, which is their fifth studio album called Save Me San Francisco. It was on the back of obviously the massive Drops of Jupiter album that they had released previously. But there were some great singles that came off it. Hey Soul Sister was probably the big
was a good song.
Big single. If It's Love is great. But my favourite track on the album, I was lucky to see them on this tour, is the opening track, which is a track called Parachute. Pat Monahan's vocal in that is just phenomenal. So my second album of choice is Train's Save Me San Francisco. The third album is a little bit of a progressive rock album, and I was lucky enough to see this band at High Voltage. It's Transatlantic. So Transatlantic, which is the supergroup. God, I all see all these supergroups, Matt. I wish I was getting £1 for every time I said supergroup. Again, a progressive rock supergroup with Neil Morse, Pete Travis from Marillion, Mike Portnoy from X of Dream Theater, Ronnie Stolt. They brought out an album in 2009 which was called The Whirlwind. The Whirlwind is absolutely, it was a third studio album. It is one of the best concept progressive rock albums of all time. I listened to it quite extensively. It's just fantastic. If you're a fan of Pink Floyd and The Wall, it's just a great album. Tracks on it like the overture itself with Whirlwind, The Wind Blew Them All Away, and then sort of poppish tracks like Rose-Colored Glasses. A great album. And then the final one for me, and I'll leave a few for you, is I'm a massive fan of Jeff Scott Soto, Matt.
Yep.
and Jeff Scott Soto was part of a.
Go on, say it.
Yeah, I know. It was a melodic rock supergroup with Jeff Scott Soto and Eric Martinson and Robert Sall. Now, this is the debut album from them. It's an absolutely phenomenal album. It's just got Jeff Scott Soto. This was off the back of Jeff having worked with Journey, and then he left Journey, but. The album itself is just it's really, really top-notch melodic rock. I bought it very, very surprised. Probably one of the early Frontier projects that I got into, and then they backed it up with a second album called Rise Up, which was great. But I'm going to go in 2009 with the self-titled Wet debut album. And that was albums in 2009, Matt. How about you?
Well, just a couple to mention, really. Foreigner brought out Can't Slow Down, which is a good album. I think it's the only album they did with Kelly Hansen.
That's right.
They've done with Kelly Hansen. I just love the title song. I remember singing that. You know, when you kind of just get a song that just won't go out of your head.
Yeah.
I just love it. So, please put Can't Slow Down on the playlist. Also, we talked a lot about this band. I think we touched upon them maybe earlier. Europe brought out Last Look at Eden, which, again, for people who just associate Europe with the Final Countdown and, they're more sort of pop rock classics, check out Last Look at Eden. Good album. In fact, check out all their albums, really. The 20th century albums, as it were, 21st century albums. But Last Look at Eden's a good album, and again, the title song is one of those modern classics. You mentioned gigs. I mean, a good year for gigs, 2009. I think you probably saw one or two of these tours as well. Chicken Foot, you mentioned, we saw them at the Shepherd's Bush Empire. I think that was one of their dates on the UK tour. Saw AC/DC a couple of times. Wembley Stadium and the O2 Arena. Saw Thunder. We talked about them a few times.
Yep.
So good year for gigs. Certainly seeing AC/DC a couple of times in a year was quite something. Saw Metallica at the O2 when they played in the Round on the Death Magnetic tour, which is a good album, quite underrated actually.
I agree, and very well on the back of such a well-produced album as well too. I thought
absolutely,
I thought it was great.
Yeah, put Cyanide on the
will do
on the playlist, please, Brian.
Will do.
That's a riff and a half.
Oof.
So good year, as you say, kind of an eclectic year for albums. Not the greatest year for albums, but some good stuff all the same. Certainly that Chicken Foot album stands out.
Yeah,
head and shoulders above the crowd, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. And some good gigs too. You see any of those gigs, Brian? Apart from the one we went to, of course.
I was lucky enough to see AC/DC at Hampden on the Black Ice tour, and that was phenomenal. It's always AC/DC when you go and see them. I always remember they kicked it off with Rock and Roll Train, which is a great opening track, and then went straight into Helly and the Bad Place to Be, and I'm like, you're just kind of going. It was a really, really good, really, really good show, and I enjoyed that. The only other two real gigs of note for me in 2009 was right at the beginning of the year. I was lucky enough in the Electric Ballroom to go and see King's X, which was we
almost got through an entire episode with you only mentioned them half a dozen times.
Well, it was only
King's
for
X at the Electric Ballroom in London.
Yeah, and that was the one that they recorded for the DVD. So
are you on the DVD?
I am on the DVD.
So could you grab a second or two from YouTube and drop it onto the Facebook page, and everyone can see Brian in 2009 going through a bit of time
with his doughy eyes, going, "There's King's X. They're the greatest band in the world."
Yeah, maybe not then.
Maybe not then. And another band who I don't know much about them, but I certainly enjoyed them live was Muse. I got to see Muse. They played in Glasgow. They made a hell of a racket for a three-piece. Matt Bellamy's it's such a great showman.
Very good.
Not a bad year for gigs.
No,
Yeah.
indeed. So, what do we do next, Brian? Do you remember?
We do what is allegedly the most requested and listened to part of the show.
Not yet. We've got to wait for that because you're going to need to give me a year for next time.
Oh,
Do you remember? It's only been 33 episodes. Don't worry. It's fine. Don't worry.
Okay, let me just check with my production manager to see what. Why don't I give you 2016 then?
Okay. Yes. All right. 6 years ago.
6 years ago.
A mere 6 years ago. Okay, fine.
Or if you're listening to the podcast in 4 years' time, 10 years ago.
Indeed.
Yay! I can do it.
Yeah, very good. All right then. So, as you said, the point now we arrive at is everyone's favourite part of the old podcast.
Allegedly.
No, I got it on good authority. As I said to you many times, I get stopped in the street and people do tell me it's their favourite part. And that part is...
Hidden Gem Time.
Thank you, Lola. It's Lola's birthday this week, actually. Happy birthday, Lola.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. So, what you got for us, Brian?
So, I'm going to go with another American band. I'm going to go with a band from Atlanta, Georgia. Bit of a southern rock feel to this band. This is a band called Driving and Crying, Matthew. Have you heard of them?
I have.
Have you?
Indeed. Yeah.
Ah, there you go. Oh, it's not much of a hidden gem then if we both know about it. So I am going to go with the album that Driving and Crying recorded in 1991. And it's an album called Fly Me Courageous. It is an absolutely fantastic album. Kevin Kinney is the main driving force around Driving and Crying. The Andy Johns was slotted to produce the album. Unfortunately, he fell ill, and they had Jeff Workman come in and produce the album instead. Tracks around the block again, Chain Reaction, the title track, Fly Me Courageous. It's probably their finest hour, both commercially and artistically. You get a real sense, an influence of R.E.M. on the album as well too. I know that there's connections between Driving and Crying and R.E.M. I think they both toured together. But I submit to podcast number 33, the album Fly Me Courageous by Driving and Crying.
Very good. Very good. So, for a change, I've got a couple of hidden gems. Yeah, I thought I'd treat myself.
Okay.
Live dangerously. First one's an easy one, really. We mentioned this band a few times, and I'm just, because we haven't really bigged them up that much, and I'm going to see them on Wednesday, I want everyone to go out and listen, not go out necessarily, go out and buy. You don't have to go out and buy things these days, do you? You get them delivered to your house. Stay in and listen to the first album by Dirty Honey, which came out last year. Now, I've been raving about this band. I was quite late to discover them, although they've been going a few years. But their first album, which came out last year, is just tremendous. So check out Dirty Honey's first album. Standout tracks: California Dreamin', Gypsy, The Wire. But it's all good. It's all good. It's an old school album in a way. It's only 30 minutes.
All killer, no filler.
Indeed. My proper hidden gem, actually, is something I came across. Quite by chance. It's a Justin Hawkins from the Darkness has got a YouTube show called Justin Hawkins Rides Again, and I would urge everyone to give it a watch. He's very, very, very good, very eloquent, very knowledgeable, and a bit like this podcast. I think that's probably where he got the idea. Actually, he examines the kind of the news topics of the day and just kind of picks around in them and assesses them. He's talked about David Coverdale's performances recently. He talks about Kiss and the alleged backing tapes and so on. So my hidden gem for this episode are the first album by Dirty Honey in 2021 and Justin Hawkins Rides Again.
Justin Hawkins rides again.
That's it. Yeah. It's well worth a look, boys and girls. Check it out. That was it. Look forward to the next one. Episode 34.
I know.
Oh my goodness. We're getting through them, aren't we?
We'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of our sponsors, all of our listeners.
Who are our sponsors then? Is there something I don't know? Have we been sponsored without me knowing it? Is that where the budget comes from? Yes. Thank you for listening. Please listen to us as many times as you can. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. And you can do it on Spotify now, I believe, Brian, can't you?
You can indeed.
Please do that. And tell your friends. Find us on Twitter. What's that Twitter handle, Brian?
At FTATpod.
Yeah, he's got that written in big, bold, black capital letters. It's about a foot high, each letter. Just by the side of him. I can see it now. Just so we can remember. At FTATpod. And also on Facebook. And are we on Instagram? We're on Instagram as well.
We are indeed. We haven't posted anything on Instagram.
We're not very good on Instagram. We've got so many avenues, so much social media. We can't keep up with it. But thanks everyone for listening.
Rock on. Cheers, everybody.
Bye.
For Those About to Pod, We Salute You is a Mealy Rogers media production.